A janitor's late-night shift turned into a life-or-death moment when she stumbled upon a powerful sew collapsed in an elevator. But what she carried in her bag wasn't just bandages. It was a secret that could unravel an empire. Would she save him or expose the truth? Before we dive into this gripping story, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. The midnight shift. The fluorescent lights of Hartwell Corporate Tower buzz softly overhead, their cold glow reflecting off the polished marble floors. At 11:47 p.m., the building was a ghost town, desks empty, boardroom silent, the only movement coming from the rhythmic squeak of a mop sliding across tile. Marla Vasquez wiped the back of her hand across her forehead, smearing a faint streak of dirt. 34 years old, with calloused hands and tired eyes, she had spent the last 6 hours cleaning offices most people never noticed. That was the thing about being a janitor. You existed in the background, invisible until someone needed something. She adjusted the strap of her oversized work bag, the weight of it digging into her shoulder. It held more than just cleaning supplies. Extra snacks for her son, Miguel, a worn copy of his favorite picture book for when she got home late, and a few other things she never talked about. A sudden thud echoed from down the hall. Marla froze. The sound had come from the elevator. For a second, she considered ignoring it. Maybe someone had dropped something. Maybe it was nothing. Then came a low groan. Her pulse spiked. Dropping the mop, she jogged toward the elevator, the rubber soles of her sneakers silent against the floor. The doors were slightly ajar, jammed open by something. No, someone. A man in an expensive suit lay slumped on the elevator floor, his face pale, his breathing shallow. Recognition hit her like a punch to the gut. Daniel Hartwell III, the CO, the billionaire, the man whose face was on half the magazines in the lobby. Marla dropped to her knees beside him, her EMT training kicking in before she could second-guess herself. She pressed 2 fingers to his wrist. His pulse was weak, but steady. His skin was clammy, his pupils dilated. Diabetic shock? She yanked her bag open, digging past Miguel's stuffed dinosaur and her lunch container until her fingers closed around the insulin pen she always carried. Her ex-husband had been diabetic. Old habit. As she prepped the injection, Daniel stirred, his eyelids fluttering. His gaze landed on her, bleary but aware. "Why you?" he rasped. "Don't talk," Marla said, voice steady despite the adrenaline humming through her. She pressed upon his arm and administered the dose. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, color began to return to his face. His breathing evened out. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived, because as she went to zip her bag back up, something slipped out, a newspaper clipping. Daniel's eyes locked onto it before she could snatch it back. The headline was impossible to miss. Hartwell Corp under fire for toxic waste cover-up in Redwater Creek. A beat of silence. Then, his voice barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" Marla's throat tightened. She hadn't just saved his life. She might have just signed her own death warrant. The unspoken deal. The elevator doors shuttered, threatening to close on them. Marla instinctively threw out her arm to block them, her muscles straining against the heavy metal. The last thing they needed was to be trapped in this tiny space. Daniel Hartwell III was still staring at her, his expression a mix of confusion, suspicion, and something else, fear. His gaze flicked from the newspaper, clipping back to her face, searching for answers. Marla stuffed the article back into her bag, her fingers trembling slightly. She hadn't planned for this. She hadn't planned for him to see it. "You're not just a janitor," he said, his voice steadier now, though still weak. She hesitated. The truth was complicated. But right now, the only thing that mattered was making sure he didn't collapse again. "You need sugar," she said, avoiding his question. She dug into her bag again and pulled out a protein bar, Miguel's favorite peanut butter flavor. "Eat this. It'll help stabilize you." Daniel took it, his fingers brushing against hers for the briefest moment. There was an odd tension in the air, like the quiet before a storm. He unwrapped the bar and took a bite, chewing slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Finally, He swallowed and let out a slow breath. "Thank you," he said, and for the first time, his voice carried something resembling sincerity. Marla nodded. "You should call your doctor, or security. Someone who can—" No. The word came out sharp, cutting her off. He winced, as if realizing how harsh he sounded, then softened his tone. "No security. Not yet." She frowned. "Why not?" Daniel hesitated, his jaw tightening. Then, in a voice so low she almost didn't hear him, he said, "Because I don't know who did this to me." Marla went still. Did this to him? She had assumed it was an accident, a missed insulin dose, a blood sugar crash. But the way he said it, like it had been deliberate. "You think someone made you pass out?" she asked carefully. Daniel's eyes darkened. "I was at a private dinner. My drink tasted off. Next thing I knew, I was here." He rubbed his temples, as if fighting off a headache. "And now I wake up to a janitor who just happens to have insulin and a newspaper article about my company's biggest scandal. So forgive me if I'm not eager to call the people who might have set me up." Marla's stomach twisted. She hadn't considered that. Hadn't considered that he might be in danger, too. The elevator dinged suddenly, the sound jarring in the tense silence. Marla's head snapped up. The display above the door showed the elevator was moving, descending. Someone had called it from another floor. Daniel's expression turned grim. "We need to go. Now." He pushed himself up, swaying slightly on his feet. Marla grabbed his arm to steady him, surprised by how warm his skin was beneath the expensive fabric of his suit. "Where?" she asked. "Anywhere but here." They stumbled out of the elevator just as the doors slid open on the 28th floor. Marla guided Daniel toward the emergency stairwell, her heart pounding in her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get as far away from this mess as possible. But she couldn't. Not yet. The stairwell was dimly lit, the concrete steps cold beneath their feet. Daniel leaned heavily against the railing, his breathing labored. "You're not okay," Marla said. "I'll live," he muttered. She studied him for a long moment. The CEO of Hartwell Corp., one of the most powerful men in the city, was now depending on her, a woman he would have walked past without a second glance just hours ago. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Why do you have that article?" Daniel asked suddenly, his voice cutting through her thoughts. Marla tensed. She could lie. She should lie. But something in his gaze made her hesitate. "Because my brother was one of the journalists investigating Redwater Creek," she said quietly. "He disappeared 3 months ago." Daniel's face went pale. "Jesus." "Yeah." She tightened her grip on her bag, the weight of it suddenly feeling heavier. "So you'll understand why I don't exactly trust your company." For a long moment, he didn't respond. Then, to her surprise, he let out a bitter laugh. "Funny," he said, "because right now I don't either." Marla blinked. "What?" Daniel met her eyes, his expression dead serious. "I was going to expose the waste dumping. That's why someone tried to take me out of the picture tonight." He took a shaky breath. "And if you help me, I'll help you find your brother." The offer hung between them, heavy with unspoken risks. Marla's mind raced. This could be a trap, or it could be her only chance to uncover the truth. Downstairs, a door slammed. Voices echoed up the stairwell. They were out of time. Daniel held out his hand. "Deal." Marla hesitated, then took it. "Deal." The hidden truth. The stairwell door burst open 2 floors below them. Heavy footsteps pounded up the concrete steps, accompanied by the crackle of a radio. Security. Marla's grip on Daniel's arm tightened. "We need to move," she whispered. Daniel nodded, his face still pale, but his eyes sharp with focus. Together. They climbed as quietly as possible, their breaths coming in short, controlled bursts. Every footstep, every rustle of fabric, felt deafening in the enclosed space. At the 30th floor, Marla pushed open the door, just enough to peek through. The hallway was empty, the same fluorescent lights humming overhead. She slipped out, pulling Daniel with her. "We can't stay here," she said. "They'll check every floor." Daniel's gaze darted around before landing on a door marked server room, authorized personnel only. In there. Marla hesitated. Server rooms were locked, but Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a key card, black, with a silver emblem. You just have a master key, she muttered. Perks of owning the building, he said dryly, swiping it. The lock clicked open. Inside, the air was cool and thick with the hum of machinery. Rows of servers blinked like tiny, restless eyes in the dim blue light. Daniel closed the door behind them, muffling the distant shouts of security. For a moment, they just stood there listening. The only sound was their own breathing. Then Daniel's knees buckled. Marla caught him before he hit the ground, guiding him to sit against the wall. His skin was clammy again, his breathing uneven. You're crashing, she said, digging into her bag for another protein bar. Eat this. Slowly. Daniel took it, his hands shaking. I don't understand, he admitted between bites. I took my insulin. This shouldn't be happening. Marla studied him. You said your drink tasted off. Could someone have slipped you something else? Something that messes with your blood sugar? His jaw tightened. Like what? I don't know, but I've seen enough ER cases to know when something's not right. She paused. Who was at that dinner? Daniel leaned his head back against the wall, closing his eyes. Board members. Investors. My CFO, Richard Voss. He let out a bitter laugh. He's been concerned about my recent decisions. Like going public about Redwater Creek. Daniel's eyes snapped open. You know about that? Marla didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small, folded stack of papers, her brother's notes. She handed them to Daniel. His expression darkened as he scanned the pages. Photos of contaminated water. Medical reports from Redwater Creek residents. Internal Hartwell Corp. Emails marked confidential. This is more than just a cover-up, Marla said quietly. This is murder, and my brother knew it. Daniel's hands clenched around the papers. I knew about the dumping, but not this. He looked up at her, his voice raw. I swear, I didn't know it went this far. Marla wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. A loud thud against the door made them both freeze. Check in here, a voice barked outside. Marla's pulse skyrocketed. Daniel shoved the papers back into her bag just as the door handle rattled. Locked. For now. Daniel pushed himself up, his voice a whisper. There's a back exit. Maintenance tunnel. Leads to the parking garage. Marla nodded. They moved quickly between the server racks, staying low. The door shook again, harder this time. They're going to break in. Daniel reached a small, unmarked door at the back of the room. He yanked it open, revealing a narrow, dimly lit tunnel. Go, he urged. Marla slipped through, Daniel right behind her. The door clicked shut just as the server room's main door burst open behind them. The tunnel smelled of dust and metal. The only light came from flickering bulbs overhead, casting long shadows. They ran, their footsteps echoing off the cramped walls. Halfway through, Daniel grabbed her arm, pulling her to a stop. Wait, he breathed. Listen. Silence. Then footsteps. Following them. Marla's blood ran cold. They know about the tunnel. Daniel's face was grim. Voss designed this building. Of course he knows. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. Marla's mind raced. They couldn't outrun them. Not with Daniel still weak. Then she noticed a side panel slightly ajar. A ventilation shaft. In there, she said, pulling at the cover. Daniel didn't argue. They squeezed inside just as the first security guard rounded the corner. The shaft was tight, barely wide enough for them to crawl. Dust coated their hands and clothes, the air thick with the scent of stale metal. Marla led the way, moving as quietly as possible. Behind her, Daniel's breathing was labored but steady. After what felt like an eternity, they reached another grate. Marla peered through, the parking garage. Empty for now. She pushed the grate open, wincing as it creaked. They dropped down, landing softly on the concrete. Daniel immediately headed for a sleek black car parked nearby, a Tesla with tinted windows. Yours? Marla asked. Company car, he said, pulling out his phone. But they can track it. He hesitated, then smashed the phone against the ground, shattering it. Marla raised an eyebrow. "Burner phones only now," he said. "You have one, right?" She nodded, patting her bag. "Good. Then let's go." "Go where?" Daniel met her eyes, his expression unreadable. To find the truth. The escape. The Tesla's engine purred to life, its headlights cutting through the dim garage. Marla gripped the edge of her seat as Daniel accelerated up the ramp, tires squealing against concrete. Behind them, shouts echoed. Security had reached the garage. Too close. Daniel swerved onto the street, merging into late-night Chicago traffic. His knuckles were white on the wheel, his gaze flicking between the road and the rear-view mirror. "They'll have the license plate flag within minutes," he muttered. Marla pulled out her burner phone, fingers flying over the keys. "Then we ditch it fast." She pulled up a map, scanning for options. "There's a metro station 3 blocks east. We can lose them in the crowd." Daniel nodded sharply and took the next turn without signaling. The sudden movement threw Marla against the door. Outside, neon signs blurred past, bars still open, nightlife unaware of the chaos unfolding in their midst. A flicker of movement in the side mirror caught Marla's eye. A black SUV, accelerating behind them. Not just security. Someone else. "Daniel," she warned. He saw it too, his jaw clenched. "Hold on." The Tesla lurched forward, weaving between cars with reckless precision. Horns blared. A taxi slammed its brakes, narrowly avoiding collision. Marla's stomach dropped. "You're going to get us killed before they do." "Trust me," he shot back. She almost laughed. "Trust. What a joke." The SUV matched their speed, gaining ground. Through the tinted windshield, Marla could just make out the silhouette of the driver, broad-shouldered, determined. Then the passenger window rolled down. A glint of metal. "Gun. Down." Daniel yanked the wheel hard right. The Tesla mounted the curb, barely missing a street lamp. A gunshot cracked through the night, shattering their rear window. Glass rained down. Marla gasped, ducking lower. Her pulse roared in her ears. Daniel's voice was eerily calm. "Next intersection. Be ready to run." The SUV roared behind them, relentless. The traffic light ahead turned yellow, then red. Daniel didn't slow. The Tesla shot through the intersection, tires screeching. A delivery truck slammed its horn, missing them by inches. The SUV wasn't as lucky. It T-boned a sedan, the crash deafening. Daniel killed the headlights and swerved into an alley. The car shuddered to a stop behind a dumpster. "Now!" he ordered. They bolted from the car, sprinting down the alley. The metro station's glow beckoned at the end of the block. Marla's lungs burned, her bag thumping against her hip with every step. Behind them, sirens wailed. Daniel grabbed her wrist, pulling her into a crowded 24-hour diner instead. The sudden warmth and noise were disorienting. Laughter, clattering plates, a jukebox playing old rock. "Change of plan," he breathed, steering her toward the restrooms. "They'll expect the metro." The men's room was empty. Daniel locked the door behind them, bracing his hands on the sink. His reflection in the mirror was pale, his hair damp with sweat. Marla leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath. Who the hell was that? Voss's people. He turned the faucet on, splashing water on his face. Or someone worse. She studied him, the way his hands still shook, the haunted look in his eyes. This wasn't just corporate espionage. This was a hunt, and they were the prey. Marla unzipped her bag, digging past her brother's notes until her fingers closed around the second burner phone, the one she never used. The emergency one. She hesitated, then handed it to Daniel. "Call whoever you trust, but make it fast." Daniel took it, his thumb hovering over the keys. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, quietly, "There's someone, but it's risky." Marla crossed her arms. "Riskier than getting shot at?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. He dialed. 1 ring. 2. Then a voice, rough with sleep. "You're alive?" Daniel exhaled. "Lucas, I need your help." "Lucas." The bodyguard from the stairwell. Marla tensed. Are you crazy? He works for Voss. Daniel covered the phone. No, he works for me. Always has. Lucas's voice crackled through the speaker. Where are you? Daniel rattled off the diner's name. And Hartwell, bring the files. Everything on Redwater Creek. A pause. Then, they're already gone. Voss wiped the servers tonight. Daniel's face darkened. Then we'll find another way. Hurry. He hung up, tossing the phone back to Marla. We have 20 minutes. She pocketed it, studying him. If this is a trap. It's not. His gaze held hers, unflinching. But you should know something. Lucas isn't just my bodyguard. He's my brother. Marla blinked. What? Half-brother. Different mothers. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. Voss doesn't know. No one does. A knock at the door made them both jump. Too soon. Daniel motioned for silence, pressing against the wall. The knock came again, followed by a familiar voice. Boss, it's me. Lucas. Daniel unlocked the door. Lucas slipped inside, taller than Daniel, broader, with a jagged scar running down one cheek. His sharp eyes darted to Marla, then back to Daniel. You look like hell. Daniel snorted. Feel like it too. Lucas tossed a duffel bag onto the sink counter. Clothes. Cash. New burners. He hesitated. And this? From his jacket, he pulled a single USB drive. Daniel took it like it was made of glass. What's on it? The only copy of the Redwater files left. Lucas's voice dropped. Voss was going to destroy it tonight. I got there first. Marla's breath caught. Proof. Daniel pocketed the drive, gripping Lucas's shoulder. Thank you. Lucas nodded, then turned to Marla. You're the janitor. She raised an eyebrow. You're the bodyguard. A beat. Then Lucas smirked. Guess we're all full of surprises. Outside, a police siren wailed, too close for comfort. Lucas's smile vanished. Time to go. Daniel grabbed a duffel bag. Where? Somewhere they'll never think to look. Lucas pulled a set of keys from his pocket and tossed them to Marla. She caught them, frowning. What's this? Your brother's safe house. Marla's blood ran cold. You knew where he was? Lucas met her gaze, his expression unreadable. Not exactly, but I know where he was supposed to be. The keys dug into Marla's palm. Somewhere in the city, her brother had left a trail, and they were about to follow it. The silence breakers. The safe house was a small, nondescript apartment above a laundromat in a neighborhood the city seemed to have forgotten. The air smelled of detergent and old wood. The walls thin enough to hear the rumble of the machines below. Marla's hand shook as she turned the key in the lock. The last time she'd seen her brother, he'd hugged her tight and promised he'd be careful. This story will change everything, he'd said. Now, she was stepping into the place he'd last called home. The apartment was sparse. A couch, a table littered with coffee-stained notes, a single laptop left open on the counter. The screen was dark, but a red USB drive was still plugged in, blinking like a silent distress signal. Daniel closed the door behind them, locking it. Lucas stood guard by the window, peering through the blinds. Clear for now, he muttered. Marla moved to the laptop, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. One press of a button, and she'd see what her brother had died for. She hit enter. The screen flickered to life, displaying a single folder, Redwater evidence. Do not delete. Inside were videos. Dozens of them. The first one played automatically. Her brother's face filled the screen, his expression grim. If you're watching this, I'm either missing or dead. Marla's breath caught. Hartwell Corp knew about the toxic leaks in Redwater Creek for years, he continued. They buried reports, paid off inspectors, and when people started getting sick, they called it a localized environmental anomaly. The video cut to footage. A Hartwell executive, caught on hidden camera, laughing as he said, "Let them sue. By the time it gets to court, half the town will be dead anyway." Daniel's fist clenched. That's Voss. Marla's vision blurred. She forced herself to keep watching. Her brother reappeared, holding up a document. This is a smoking gun. Signed orders from Hartwell's board to dump illegally. And this, he held up another paper, is a list of everyone who approved it. The camera zoomed in. Daniel's father's signature was at the top. Daniel recoiled like he'd been struck. No, Marla's voice was ice. You know, I knew about the dumping. Not this. He grabbed a laptop, scrolling frantically. There has to be more. Lucas stiffened at the window. We've got company. Headlights flooded the room. A black SUV rolled to stop outside. Too soon. Marla yanked the USB from the laptop, shoving it into her pocket. We need to go. Now. Daniel didn't move. He was staring at the screen, where the video had switched to security footage. Redwater Creek's water plant. Hartwell employees dumping barrels under cover darkness. Daniel. Lucas snapped. Daniel slammed the laptop shut. We're not running anymore. Marla froze. What? He pulled out his burner phone, dialing a number with quick, sharp movements. I'm calling the press. Every major outlet. We're leaking this live. Lucas grabbed his arm. They'll kill you. Daniel's smile was razor thin. Now the whole world is watching. Marla's pulse pounded. This was suicide. But it was also the only way. She pulled out her phone, too. Then we'd do it together. The SUV's doors opened outside. Heavy footsteps approached the building. Daniel hit call. A reporter answered on the first ring. This is Daniel Hartwell 3, he said, his voice steady. And I have a story you're going to want to hear. This story proves that even the smallest voices can bring down the biggest giants. If you believe in the power of the truth, share and tag someone who needs to hear this. And don't forget, subscribe for more stories of courage against all odds. Who would you risk everything for?